I'm so glad to be back. Welcome. I'm excited. So I'll introduce myself a little bit for those that they haven't seen the other podcast. So I've been a pediatric nurse practitioner for 20 years as a practitioner. I've been in pediatrics for 30 years. My first degree was in psychology. I got a bachelor's in psychology and then really loved physiology, anatomy, and really chemistry and all that. So then I decided to go into nursing. Probably would have went into medicine had I had that as a frame of reference. I didn't know any physicians at the time in my family, so I didn't have that as a thought. But I love what I do. I love my patients. I worked for 11 years in the pediatric ICU. I traveled for about, 10 years doing medical missions, been in 30 countries. I'm a certified life coach. And so my passion is mental and emotional health for children and parents. We all know us managing our mental and emotional health is the model for our children's mental and emotional health. And I know kids can trigger everything in us. But it is, it's our responsibility to start having some self-control and learning more about how do you produce how do you build, I would say, healthy mental and emotional health in your children. That's mostly what all my podcasts, it's going to be a series, how the physical affects the emotional, how the emotional affects the physical. We are complex human beings. We're amazing human beings. And you really can't segregate mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health. They're really all related. You can't have mental without emotional. But I've done lots of research. I've studied mental and emotional health for 30 years as well because of my own journey of anxiety and panic attacks in my 20s and 30s. Pretty severe and pretty daunting. And I was determined, and this is not a very popular topic, but I was determined I didn't want medication. I grew up in a family with addiction, a lot of addiction in our family. I actually lost a sister to a drug overdose. My parents were both alcoholics. Dad quit drinking because mother got so bad. So I didn't want medication. And I knew, now this is interesting for some of you, I learned this in church. I was fortunate to go to a church that was a leadership church. It taught us how to lead ourselves, how to apply the word of God, the Bible. And I didn't grow up in church, so this was new for me, but how to apply the Bible to my life. And it is learning to think. The Bible says, take every thought captive, meaning we don't have to entertain every thought that comes into our mind, and that we do have control over our thinking. So I'm going to really focus today, the talk on mental health. What does that mean? And I got kind of sciencey. So I really study a lot of Dr. Caroline Leaf. She's a neuroscientist. She's also a communication pathologist, which I think is amazing. She's worked with some of the hardest traumatic situations in South Africa. She worked with children who were forced to fight in the armies, children in an army. They had to kill their parents, kill family. She was able to take these children and reverse some of the trauma and the wounds that was produced in their brain and in their memories. And so she has done her diligence. And so I read, and I don't go with just one person's perspective. I think you need to read several different perspectives and see which one you agree with. And then with medication, I know in behavioral health, that's what they call mental and emotional health. It's behavioral health. There's a lot of advocates for treating the brain chemistry with medications, but you can also learn how to think in a healthy way. There are times maybe in the midst of a traumatic situation, in the midst of a situation that you just need to get control over your emotions. I'm not against medications. I just knew for me, I wanted to figure out a way to not do meds. And I was able to heal my anxiety by looking in my past, what had created my anxiety, what thought processes. Anxiety is fear. The other name for anxiety is driven by fear. And then unchecked and uncontrolled can go into a full-on panic attack. but I had to really think through childhood events that created the thoughts that were perpetuating the anxiety. And then there's no easy way to get healthy. Just like physical fitness, someone that looks good and is physically fit, it's not easy. It's working out. It's choosing to eat right. It's choosing to get out of bed when I don't want to get out of bed at 4:30. But I value health because I like the way I feel. Now, in that moment, do I value health? Not always. But, I say maturity is learning to do the right thing when I don't feel like it. That's maturity. And that's what we're trying to teach our children, right? Is that you don't always feel like eating healthy, but I need you to eat healthy because I want you to be healthy, right? So I really want to focus on parents and helping you. I have lots of resources. So I dig into functional medicine. I dig into natural medicine, but I'm a whole believer in Western medicine as well. We all need each other. Chiropractic work, we all need each other. And I think together, there's a lot of people rooting for you, young people. There's a lot of people rooting for you, young parents, older parents, wherever you're at in that parenting. You can heal wounds that have been there. You can heal wounds that you say, maybe I did instill this in my child and I didn't mean to. There's always grace. Guys, we're not perfect. We're not going to be perfect. And neither are your kids going to grow up and be the perfect parent. So kids, give your parents grace. You're going to learn. You're going to make mistakes. We all are. We're in it together. So part of just, talking about thinking, our mental health. Where do our thoughts come from? So here's some science behind that. Human thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are rooted in the brain, where a complex network of cells receives information from internal and external environment, transforming this information into our experience of ourselves, the world around us, and our relationships with them. Dr. Caroline Leaf states that every thought has a corresponding electrical chemical reaction in your brain. So that's the brain chemistry. Our thoughts and our emotions can create our brain chemistry. You think about a runner. When you go running, you get endorphins. So your physical activity creates brain chemistry. When I walk into a situation that I feel fearful, cortisol levels are produced. Endorphins are produced. Adrenaline is produced. So my thoughts have the ability to produce my brain chemistry. Dr. Caroline Leaf will say 87%, now 87% of physical illness comes from our thoughts and our emotions. Our thoughts and our emotions. 87% of physical illness. Right now, they treat irritable bowel syndrome, a lot of times with antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds. Because the brain-gut, we're learning that, the brain-gut connection, right? So I encourage you with medications in that let's do what we can do for ourselves without medications. Control the controllables. Some things there's not. I am talking behaviors on a huge spectrum. I do recognize that. Some people need medications. That's fine. But what I'm recognizing and where I'm getting frustrated is that I'm seeing that used to be just adults were on all these medications. Now our kids are on all these medications. And I know parents, it's hard to know. You're hearing from the teacher what they need. They need medication. You're hearing from the doctor they need medication or the provider. You're like, what do I do? So I would say before doing medications, let's try everything else we can do. But I think herein lies a little bit of mental mindset changing toward mental and emotional health. I think we have this mindset that insurance should pay for everything. Should they? Probably. But if they don't, that's an investment. The greatest investment you will ever do is in your mental and emotional health. So do we need to drive that fancy car? You're like, I don't drive a fancy car. Okay, well, could you go a little less on the car so that you can invest in your own mental and emotional health? I've spent a lot of money on my mental and emotional health, and it has been so worth it. Where could you cut back? Do you have to buy the big house? Do you have to buy the nice furniture? We will spend $600 on a great chair or a desk or whatever. I mean, seriously, we'll spend money in areas that have no value really to who we are. Guys, name brands, really? Do you have to have the name brand? I'm just bringing up things. I know this isn't always what you want to talk about or what people want to talk about. I have a lot of parents that want to go the natural route, and they're looking for ways of not doing so many medications. And, I'm going to say to parents, you need to investigate. Do all of us have attention deficit? Yes. We're all having a hard time focusing. So let's not be quick. I think other people are quick with labels. I don't like all the labels. I had a 15-year-old come in the other day, and she's obese, she's overweight, and I think she's always been overweight all her life. And she had an attitude. She didn't want to talk about her weight. She was angry. She was frustrated. And initially, you could really get turned off by how she presents herself. And she'd been diagnosed with oppositional defiant personality. And the more I talked to her, I always try to ask questions again. And I can look past. Now I get it. I don't live with them. So I know this is not easy. I'm not asking you to do something easy. I know she could say things that would make me kind of trigger me and make me want to just go forget it. If you want to be that way, just be that way. But I knew there was a little girl inside of her hurting. I could tell. A little girl inside of her hurting that's always been overweight, doesn't know how to change it, and I'm angry about it, and so I'm taking it out on everybody else. So if you have a child that is always acting out in their behavior, they're being oppositional, they're being difficult to get along with, please have patience. Please don't take their behavior personal, and that's what we tend to do sometimes, but try to get some counseling and find a way to pay for it. I know it's hard. It is hard. I get that. But there are ways that we can cut back maybe so that we can just invest. I'm telling you, that'll be the greatest investment you'll ever make is in your mental and emotional health. And that doesn't mean always therapy. That's like challenging yourself. I went to now you don't have to go this drastic, but I moved to Australia and did international leadership college because I had a fear of speaking in public. I actually went to grad school because of that. I knew I'd be forced to do presentations. I knew I would be forced to step out of my comfort zone. So do something that makes you step out of your comfort zone and, pay for different retreats. Go on a retreat that makes you so uncomfortable. But I just say again, I said it in the last podcast, embrace awkward. That's tension. Embrace the tension. That's where growth happens. All right, so I'm going to go back to talking about the neuroscience. So I got off on the medications because people will say, well, your brain produces chemicals that you just need medications to change. Well, Dr. Caroline Leaf is a neuroscientist. She's been doing this 30 years, and she would say we can change our brain chemistry. Will it be challenging? Will it be work? Yes. But being physically fit takes work. Being emotionally fit takes work. Being spiritually fit takes work. All those work synergistically to produce a healthy human being. We're not looking for perfection. None of us will be perfect. Healthy just means I'm growing in the right direction, one step at a time. Anything that's healthy grows. So am I learning something new and applying it? Am I changing? Am I staying in? Are people constantly giving me the same feedback over and over that I'm not changing? Feedback is hard, but if several people are telling you the same thing about yourself, yes, it is their perspective. Yes, it's filtered through their challenges as well, or their maybe insecurities and stuff. But if you keep hearing the same thing over and over about how you come across, perhaps there's a little truth in it. And I think I've learned over the years, there's probably a little truth in feedback, in most feedback. Now, people have issues and they have their own stuff, but I just try to find what is true. Is this true about me? There again, do not judge yourself. Don't say I shouldn't have acted that way or I should act that way. No. I must have learned how to think in a way that's created these emotions, and then I'm acting on it. So let me just go back and reflect and figure out, what am I thinking that's leading to these emotions that then is creating this behavior. So there again, our thoughts. When you think, chemicals are produced and form feedback loops. That's what creates memories. That's what keeps repetitive actions going on and on, repetitive thought cycles. Whether your thoughts, emotions, and attitudes are toxic or positive, they are represented in your body as electrochemical reactions. We're made up of two systems, and you'll know these. One is chemical. That's our endocrine system, all the hormones in our bodies, not just female hormones and male hormones, but there's all kind of hormones. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. There's all kind of hormones. Other electrical responses is going to be our nervous system. Thoughts and emotions can never be separated. So here's some interesting research as well. Research has shown that we have over 25 to 50,000 thoughts a day. Is that crazy? 25 to 50,000 thoughts a day. But here's the sad thing. 80% of that is negative. 80% of that is negative. Where does that come from, guys? It's our senses. It's what we're taking in. Yes, it's important. And she also says 95% is repetitive from the day before. So we ruminate on negative or positive. We can do either one. We do have a choice. That is our will, our choice. And so that is a great gift that we all have. I can choose what I'm going to focus on. It may be hard to keep changing those thought patterns because they've been produced, but at any age you can change. I just encourage you to change sooner than later. My mother's in 85, and it's kind of sad. She, like I said in my first thing, she's been an alcoholic since she was probably in her 30s or 40s. She's been sober probably, 20 years. But do you know, just now as she's aging and she is losing some of her memories and mind, she's able to be vulnerable and soft. And she tells us she loves us. She's never been able to say, I love you, never her whole life. She would say, I like you, which that's awesome. Sometimes love, in her mentality was sometimes love is just that word's thrown around too much. She likes, I like you, I really like you. But she is able now to say more and have quality conversations with my dad and myself. That's sad. Let's not wait till 85. Let's do it now. Let's do it now. Let's change. So I'm just going to do some prompting for your thinking. I want to pose some questions to you. Who taught you how to think? Have you ever thought of that? Isn't that a great question? Who taught you how to think? Much of our thinking is learned as a child. It's default. We've learned by those around us. Well, here's the other question. Were they healthy or were they wounded? Had they done work on themselves? Because you learned your thinking patterns through them. You learned fear. But you also learned positive things. There's a lot of positive emotions, and there's a lot of, we're not all negative. I get that. I think I tend sometimes, and this has been my lesson in life and my journey of, I grew up in a very negative, intense environment. Both parents are very negative. So I've had to really retrain my brain on how to recognize a negative thought. Like that's probably going to be the first default is something negative. But then I have had to retrain my brain to say, hey, let's look at it a different way. I think you can look at it in another way. And so that I've had to train myself. And I've learned I like the what positive thoughts produce in me better than the negative. It's not been an easy transition. And still a lot of my friends know if I'm stressed, I may present the negative first, but if they'll give me a moment and they can handle the venting, I will turn it positive because I want to. It may take me a minute to get there, but I want to turn it to, let me look at how this could work for me and not just be a negative thing. So who taught you how to think? Yeah, were their thinking habits healthy? And so I think as parents, I'd love for what you to think about is teaching kids how to think, developing healthy thinking habits. How do you do that? So what I do to my patients when they come in, there again, I like the kids to know this is about your health. And I explain health to them. We are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual human beings. And I also tell kids, even though if your parents aren't spiritual and they haven't really embraced that aspect of their health, I encourage kids to start researching that, start looking into that. I'm a Christian, and I do share my beliefs and my thoughts with my patients. I have patients from all different faiths. I love people from all different walks of life and all different cultures. But I encourage kids to start venturing in and researching that, because mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health is huge. There's lots of research on the value of spiritual health, your beliefs. But here's what I tend to ask my kids to kind of help develop healthy habits is when my patients say, so I'll ask Johnny, so how did school go? I don't want to go to school. And I'll say, you don't want to go to school? And I ask them, well, you know what? So you're in 6th grade. How many more years do you have of school? Even if you don't go to college, you got 6 more years, right? So how could you think about school in a different way so that you could maybe enjoy, right? You're going to have to go to school every day, right? You might as well enjoy that 24 hours. And you have the choice and the option by choosing your thinking. So I try to give them some thoughts on, so what if you could meet your new best friend? You could meet your new best friend today. I said, you could find a teacher that really likes you, likes that you work hard in the class, likes that you show up with a good attitude, and they might open a door for you to do a play that you want to do, or they might ask you to be their helper. They might ask you to do something that you didn't know you were good at. They're going to maybe recognize something in you that you didn't know was there, a strength. So I try to help them with perspective. Find something to get excited about school. You got to do it anyway, but adults, we can do the same, right? I got to work today. I need to be here 10 hours, however many hours you work at your job. I might as well bring the best me there. Why do I bring the grouchy me today? Let me bring my best me. I don't know who I'm going to come in contact with today. My next client, my next customer could be someone that's going to open a door for me. Do I bring my grouchy self because I didn't sleep good last night? Did I, do I have stuff going on? But this is why mental and emotional health is so valuable. We're always interacting with our coworkers. Why don't I just give everybody the benefit of the doubt? Why don't I just show up in my best self? Are we going to do it every day? No. But could we maybe aim for 80% of the time, 90% of the time? Right? I think we'll like the fruit of being positive and bringing my best self forward more than the fruit of being negative, right? It just takes work. So helping Johnny think through that. I always ask him, so if you went to school thinking you were going to meet your new best friend, what would you feel? He's like, good. Well, what are you going to feel if you go to school thinking, I don't like this. I don't see any purpose for this today. Why do I need to learn math? I'm never going to use that. You never know. I have a physician I work with, and she's using her AP math, computer science from eons ago, but now it's helping us do our medical records. And it's been amazing to watch her do that. And it's been great. So you don't ever know, but you don't ever know what you're going to use from your schooling. And so I think it's good to help kids play that forward. The other thing I do for some kids is, why are grades important? When kids are struggling with their grades, or even really explaining to kids, grades aren't about you being smart. I try to let them know, why do you need to make good grades? It really shows more your effort than it does your smarts. So I tell them, do you want to choose your college, or do you want someone to choose your college for you? Well, of course, I want to choose my college. Well, what could prevent that? What could obstruct that? Well, if I don't make the grades, Right, because I say colleges aren't always looking for just smart people, intellectual people. They're looking for people that'll put the effort in. I've met a lot of smart people that aren't willing to put the effort into doing the work. So they don't make the grades or they don't make the cutoff to get into the college. But so you just don't want to get to that in 12th grade now and gosh, look back and regret that I didn't show up with my best self because I didn't feel like it at the time. There again, maturity is learning to do the right thing when I don't feel like it. That's what we got to teach our kids, and teaching them healthy thinking patterns that will produce the emotion that makes them want to behave in the way that is healthy. So here's some action points I always want to give you an action point. We talk every time that knowledge is fantastic and we love it and we have it at our fingertips everywhere, but knowledge won't change us all the way. It's applying the knowledge is going to change us, taking action. So here's an action step. Start listening to your thoughts, reflect on them at the end of the day, and really at the beginning of the day as well. Take time to say, how did I do yesterday? And don't judge. Just say, it was a good day. I did really well. I really like the fruit of living in the positive mindset than I do my negative natural inclination in the negative. So reflect on that. Quiet time is so important. Parents, I know that's hard. You're like, yeah, right. I've got a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 8-year-old. I'm going to have quiet time. But if in any way you can get 15 minutes to yourself, I think you'll be a better mom because you need that for you. That's not selfish. To want time for yourself, I tell parents all the time when they have these cute little newborns, I just love them. But that's a hard time when you have a newborn. Your emotions are crazy. You're physically tired. You're not sleeping. Your hormones are crazy. I tell young moms, if you have a mom and a dad that are close that can help you, you have friends that are willing to help you, please take 30 minutes and you and dad go away and have coffee. Get back to you and him, and that's healthy for you to just step away, right? It's just good to have quiet time. You need quiet time. And your action step, parents, for kids is discover the art of listening. It's a lost art. We're so busy trying to make people understand. We want to be understood. So I just need you to understand. So I'm just going to keep talking until I think the more I talk, you're just going to understand. But really, let's learn to listen so we can understand, right? Instead of other people always expecting others to understand where we're coming from. Let me listen to understand where my kids are coming from, where other people are coming from. And let's teach that skill to our kids. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you can take home 1 or 2 points from this, and it'll help you in your mental and emotional health journey. And I will see you next time.